I'm going to either win 388 games or I'm going to win 389. Neither one of them throw me over the hump or nothing. Unless something happened to Joe today. Anything happened to Joe today?
Offense, control the line of scrimmage. Be dominant. Communicate up front. Dominate with our size and athleticism. Ain't no time now to worry about what the outcome is. Don't look at the scoreboard. One play at a time. From the first play to the last play.
Need a horn and a drum roll.
Talk to them boys that sat on them benches. I never talk to them boys that sat on them benches. I was in the game on 4th and inches.
Now it's time to go to work. Season's over. A different time. I told you they remember November. But December's our time. December's we do what we do. That's Florida State time. We're back where we belong.
Let's get it on. Need a horn to break it down. I never talked to them boys that sat on them benches. I was in the game on 4th and inches. Just change.
I'm going to either win 388 games or I'm going to win 389. It's either one of them throw me over the hump or nothing. Unless something happened to Joe today. Anything happened to Joe today?
Offense, control the line of scrimmage. Be dominant. Communicate up front. Dominate with our size and athleticism. Ain't no time now to worry about what the outcome is. Don't look at the scoreboard. One play at a time. From the first play to the last play.
Need a horn and a drum roll.
Never talk to them boys that sat on them benches. I never talk to them boys that sat on them benches. I was in the game on 4th and inches.
Now it's time to go to work. Season's over. It's a different time. I told you they remember November. But December's our time. December's we do what we do. That's Florida State time. We're back where we belong.
Let's get it on. Need a horn. Break it down.
I never talk to them boys that sat on them benches. I never talk to them boys that sat on them benches. I was in the game on 4th and inches.
What is going on, folks? Florida State family, Seminole Nation, in the 863 tribe. What is going on with y'all? It's a midday, man. It is, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock Eastern time on a Tuesday. But I ain't working, so I ain't got nothing to do. So I said, let's hop online and see what the people are doing. So most of y'all probably are at work. I get it. Lunch is past, so it's not your lunch breaks. So if you're able to, but if you're able to join and kick it, by all means, man, join and kick it. If not, you're not gonna miss much. This isn't necessarily a information packed live stream or anything like that. It's really just talking about all this stuff that's coming on, because we got a big weekend coming up here. I mean, July 15th is right around the corner, and we got Levy, we got Danzy, and we got Daniels all announcing on that day. Good chance FSU goes 3-0 on that day, but we'll see what happens, man. So we are we got a big weekend coming up that we're gonna talk about and kind of preview that, and just we are drawing ever closer, man. August is around the corner, and that's the fall camp, and when fall camp starts, and then from there, Labor Day is right there. So we are inching ever so closer to the football season, a season that Florida State fans haven't had this much anticipation for in 6, 7, 8 years. It's been, right? We are excited for the season. We are expecting a big thing. Hold on. I'll text that later. My bad. Got a text message. As you can see, I'm not at work. And even when I'm not at work, I get this time off and they still message and bother me. It's ridiculous. So I'm not even answering it. But anyway, yeah, man, we're looking forward to a big time season this year. You got LSU game 1. Should be a top 10 clash. And in the meantime, recruiting is the hot topic. Recruiting. Florida State has a chance to finish off the month of July very strong. They started the month of July very strong. As you saw, we posted in the community, man. I posted it, I think it was yesterday. The days just fly by, but I'm pretty sure that was yesterday when not 247, but On3 released their updated rankings. Luke Kromenhoek is now a top 3 quarterback on On3 and 247, and Elijah Moore goes from not ranked to almost a top 100 player, right outside the top 100 at 108. So Florida State is absolutely the evals seem to be hitting that out the right positions. And again, a strong start to the month of July where you had Elijah Moore. You had, who all we have in that first week? You had, should I forget that quick, man? Let me go. You had Rydarius Red Morgan. You had Elijah Moore. You had Ricky Knight. And you had D.D. Holmes. All good pickups. That is, what is that? That's one. Ricky Knight is a 247 composite 4-star. So that's 1, 2. I think Elijah Moore is still a composite 3-star. That's almost 3 4-stars and a 3-star there at the safety position. Talking about Red Morgan. So Florida State, man, we're looking pretty good, man. I know some fans are a little bit, I don't know. I think they want some bigger names, some bigger fish. But I think those are coming because, again, July 15th, you got some 3 names coming up. Two legit blue chippers, and then the 3-star and Levy. But I think Levy also jumped up in the rankings in this past rankings boost. So I got to go check his rankings because I think he jumped up. Then, of course, we finished off the month with Charles Lester. So FSU has a chance to head into August with a legit top 10 class with 2 5-stars committed. I mean, how long before does Luke eventually get that 5th star? I don't know, but out of 2 of the 4 recruiting sites, he is a top 3 quarterback. He is the lowest on Rivals, but I think everybody would agree Rivals is probably everybody that worked at Rivals now works at either 247 or On3. I'm not even sure anybody still works at Rivals. I don't know who's doing their recruit. I don't know who updates their stuff anymore. So I'm not even sure if you can take a Rival serious. ESPN, they don't necessarily take the recruiting rankings as serious as these other 2 sites. ESPN is good sometimes. It usually takes ESPN a while to update their stuff. But I think he's a 4-star on ESPN, if I'm not mistaken. Matter of fact, you can go hit that graphic on the community. And yeah, so Luke's actually a 4-star on the ESPN. So he's a 4-star, obviously, on every site. He's a top 3 quarterback on 2 of the sites. He's a top 10 quarterback on 3 of the sites. And then on Rivals is where he's all the way down at 22 and not even ranked nationally on Rivals. And everybody would agree, come on, that is completely ridiculous from Rivals. So don't put any stock in Rivals. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a Florida State fan, but that's across the board with Rivals. Again, I don't even know who works there anymore. FSU, man, we're doing good, though. We're doing good. Let's chat out everybody in the chat, man. Again, I know it's a midday on a Tuesday, but if you can kick it with me, please get in the chat. Let me know you guys are here. Hit the like button while you're here. And let's see who all decided to join us this afternoon. Marco, man. Hey, shout out to the Louisville fan, resident Louisville fan, Marco. He always shows up and shows some love. TJ Capers, if you're not aware who that is a 5-star edge / linebacker out of South Florida, committed to Louisville very early. A lot of people didn't think this guy would stick with Louisville. Looks like not only is he going to stick with Louisville, he's reclassifying. He's going to play football this year. He is reclassifying to the class of 23. Looks like he'll be a Cardinal. So shout out to Louisville, shout out to Marco. We don't play y'all this year anyway, but hey man, y'all got TJ Capers, man. That's a big haul for you guys. Tara, what's going on? Montre's in the building. Michael Adams, Jadon. Know the rule says Leicester will be a Knoll. I've been saying it all along. I believe Leicester will be a Knoll as well. Raymond James in the building. He says, please hit the like button and share with your folks. Briley, yeah, we talking about our updated on 3 rankings. Irv Gotti, let's get it, man. We need LJ McCray. We need defensive linemen, period. But I hear you on LJ. Levy's a top 200. I knew he jumped up on some of the rankings. So, again, man, the evals are evaling. Tyler says, I don't put a lot of stock in the ranking updates, especially in the offseason. But Luke killed the 11, so I am glad to see him get another bump. Touche to that. I am about 50-50 there with you in a sense of it's hard. It never makes sense to me. Granted, certain positions. So, for instance, quarterback rankings, I think when the Elite 11 happens midsummer and some of the 7-on-7 circuits are happening midsummer as well, I think it makes sense for certain skill positions like wide receiver. I mean, just look at what Elijah Moore was doing in the Elite 11 some of his Elite 11 games and some of those ridiculous catches he was having. Obviously, we had the Elite 11 in that same time span. So certain players, certain positions, I think it makes sense for certain positions to get rating bumps or fall in rankings. If I'm looking at a quarterback, it makes sense to me that a quarterback can go up or down in the rankings because they're participating in these camps, and same thing with some receivers and maybe even some DBs. Where I start drawing the line is when you start having defensive linemen and offensive linemen skyrocket. Like no games are being played, no real. One thing I hate is I hate watching offensive linemen and defensive linemen go like on those one-on-one drills. I don't think it's a gauge. First of all, it completely favors the defensive lineman. And I don't really think it's a gauge on an offensive lineman. And I mean, if he does well, sure. But so I understand where you're like, man, some of these rankings don't make sense. I do get it. I do get how some of these rankings don't make sense and how in the middle of July, you see a defensive lineman go drop 5 spots or drop 10 spots or raise 10 spots. Doesn't quite make sense. But some of the positions I do think makes a little bit of sense. So I'll say that. So it's a little bit of a 50-50 with me there, Tyler. I agree with some of it, but some of it I do understand how, again, I understand how a quarterback can go up like Luke. I understand how wide receiver can go up as well. So what's up, Myron Sanders, Jeffrey Bell, Will? What's going on, Will? Will says, in my opinion, if Luke didn't get bumped to 5-star being a top 3, I don't think he's going to get it. High 4-star. It's still really good. I agree. No, I agree. I think it's possible, but I'm with you. He's top 3 in 2 of the websites. I was talking about this to Terrence, I think it was earlier. I don't know if Luke ever gets a 5th star, but a high tier 4-star is just as good. Just as good. Terrence says 5 stars in this class. What odds you got? Let's talk about that in a minute. Champs 99 in the building. Yeah, Elijah Moore skyrocketed. Levy apparently is cousins with Knight. Yes, he is, or some relationship there. I'm tracking that they are cousins. Word is he's raw but tall, athletic, has the upside. Foregone conclusion he will commit. So I think he's a no. And then Tyler says, I just don't get the hand wringing when one of our guys drops in the rankings and all of a sudden fans say he sucks when he's the same player he was. So who dropped? I'm not aware of everybody who rise and drop, but who dropped and who sucks? You got to remember, these are fans you're talking to. The same fans that act like the rankings don't matter are the same fans that rave about getting a 5-star. Like the same fans that'll tell you, oh, stars don't matter. Just give me good, hardworking Americans. Those are what we want. Just want hardworking Americans because the stars don't matter, right? Those are the same people that say, Charles Lester, you got to sign. But if the stars don't matter, then why do we want Charles Lester so bad? Oh, I know why. Why do we want Trader so bad? Oh, I know why. So you got to remember, Tyler, you a lot of times you're talking to a brick wall. You're just talking to a brick wall. Stars don't matter, but guys are going up and down, and depending on who the player is, the stars don't matter, and depending on who the player is, oh, we got to get him because he's a legit 5-star. At the end of the day, man, stars matter. But Terrence said, this is an interesting question from Terrence. So in this upcoming class, what are the odds that we have 5 5-stars? Well, I don't know. So Davis and Landon Thomas dropped. Oh, did they? On the on 3? I didn't know that. Let me check that out. I actually didn't know that. Let me check that out real quick. So Landon Thomas is no longer the number 1 tight end in the country. That's interesting. And that's why I said, like, some of this stuff, man, you take with a grain of salt. Some of it makes a little bit of sense. I don't know how Landon Thomas or any of these people dropped, but I'm finna look it up. So let's go to running backs. Right now, Cam Davis on 3. He's still the number 4 ranked running back on 3. But on 3 is kind of doing – on 3 has their own version of the composite. So what you're looking at when you just look at on 3 on the surface is their own version of the composite rankings. On 3 has him nationally ranked 94, the 7th ranked running back. 247 has him 116 nationally, 7th ranked running back. ESPN still has him as the 4th ranked. Rivals, again, we're not paying attention to Rivals. With that said, on 3's industry ranking, what they call it, again, same version of the composite, but their industry ranking has them 58 nationally and 4th overall running back. So, again, wouldn't worry so much about Cam Davis. He's fine. Who cares? We know Cam Davis is the real deal. And then Landon Thomas is still the number 1 ranked tight end nationally on their industry ranking. But he plummeted in the on 3. He went all the way down to 66 nationally. And the 3rd, he went from the 1 to the 3. And the 11th player in the state of Georgia. 247, he's still number 1. And he's still a top 25 player in 247. So on 3 is the only one where he fell there. So again, I wouldn't. Who cares, right? Don't care. Don't care. And that kind of goes to Tyler's point. Some of these guys fall, and some of these guys, like an Elijah Moore gets a boost. Some of these guys fall. It is what it is. I am not worried about it. It's good to see Elijah Moore get his credit because we said that Elijah Moore was going to skyrocket up these rankings. So it's good to see that, and I expect that to continue with him. So Elijah Moore's industry ranking is 222 nationally, 38th wide receiver. That's his industry ranking. And then you can go to composite. He actually got a bump up in the composite as well. If you go to his composite ranking, he is actually a 91 overall, 240 nationally. So overall, Elijah Moore is a 4-star. He's a 4-star period, man. But to Terrence's question about how many 5-stars we have in this class, honestly, bro, Let's assume Landon Thomas keeps his 5th star. I expect Charles Lester to be a part of this class. Those are the 2 5-stars that I am the most confident in. After that, if you're hoping that Luke gets a 5th star, I think you can drop that. I don't think Luke's going to get a 5th star. I think he would have got it by now. I don't think that's going to happen. Unless you think you're getting Trader and someone else. I mean, I think I'm going to say 2 to 3 5-stars in this class. I don't think you're getting 5 or 6 or anything like that. Unless they absolutely, make it to the playoff and have a Cinderella type season, which isn't out of the realm of possibility. I just don't see 5 or 6 5-stars. Tyler says 0% on that. I don't see 5 or 6 guys either. Yeah, they did. I saw that. Tyler says when guys commit and shut it down, they stop going to camps and they tend. That's true too. But I think people kind of understand the ins and outs of these recruiting rankings at this point. Recruiting is covered so much more than it was covered even 10 years ago. And it's covered with such a microscope. And a lot of the recruiting services don't even hide the fact that they value people attending these camps. Because honestly, that's where these guys get a chance to see. They get a chance to see a lot of these kids. It's hard to go watch. I mean, they don't have enough people at 247. They don't have enough people at On 3 to go watch every single game in the country and gazillion 50 states. You would have to send people to Hawaii. I'm pretty sure Alaska doesn't play. Pretty sure Alaska doesn't play football up there, but I don't know. But imagine trying to send people to every state in the United States. It's not theoretical, right? It's not possible. So what do? You get as much people together at one camp and you try to – it's an inexact science. It is an inexact science for sure. That doesn't mean, again, 9 out of 10 times, while the ranking may not be perfect, how much talent a guy has is usually reflected by where he's ranked, where his stars lie. Do guys get through the cracks? Absolutely. Do guys get overhyped because they look amazing as freshmen and maybe hit a peak early? Absolutely. Taryn says KJ Bolden and Trader. So you're asking a lot of big gets there. Again, these are guys that it's not impossible to get KJ Bolden or Trader, but if you're asking the over or under on 5, it's definitely the under because KJ announces the first week of August. We're gonna assume that that's Georgia. Trader, I've given my thoughts on Trader. I know everybody will tell you that he's a Florida State lean. That recruitment has always felt like it's not a Florida State lean to me. But that doesn't mean I don't know anything. That's not coming from anybody. That's my own gut feeling. So I wouldn't put any money in the Trader basket personally, but that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. But for me, that's like the third guy you get. Again, I don't see 4 or 5 or 6 5-stars. I don't see that. You would have to hit on Bolden, Trader, and pull Jeremiah Smith out of your ass to get anywhere near that. And that's not going to happen. So you got to keep it realistic. At the most, you get one of those 3. Believe it or not, and I'm going to say this, and I know KJ Bolden's going to commit the first week of August. I don't think KJ Bolden's recruitment's going to stop the first week of August. If you made me pick, I would put more money on FSU getting Bolden than I would get than Trader. That's just me. That's my own personal opinion. I have nothing to back that up. I have no sources, nothing. If you just ask me my own personal opinion, I would give Bolden a better chance of being a Seminole by the end. By comes early signing period, Bolden to me has a better chance of being a Nole than Trader does. That's just my personal opinion. I also want to shout out Tara because she's been a member of the tribe for 23 months. She says, "Sup, Polk, been a minute since I got you live." Man, thank you for being a supporter for so long, Tara, and just I'm glad I finally got to be live for you to catch me. I know I usually do a lot at a lot later time, so doing it in the midday maybe was able to help you catch a live. So I appreciate you, Tara, for tuning in to that. But that's just my opinion on those two guys. I don't have, if you haven't been able to tell, I don't have a lot of hope in the Trader buzz. I know every FSU outlet will tell you FSU's trending extremely well for Trader and blah. I just don't believe it. And it doesn't mean those guys are purposely putting out wrong information. I think they're just putting out what they're being told. I just think they're being told or being led astray. But if we pay more attention to do we think Florida State goes 3-0 this weekend? I actually tend to think we go 3-0 this weekend. Oh man, we just talking about the upcoming season. We talking about how we're gonna finish in recruiting. We talking about the ranking updates, Vontae. So a lot of stuff going on in Florida State's favor in the month of July. We've added 4 prospects already. I think we add another 3 this weekend. I really do. I feel pretty strong about all 3 guys this weekend. The only one I would worry about, and I'm not even worried about him at this point, would be, and the only reason I say worry about Daniels, I feel good about Daniels. And before this week, I would have said maybe, because I was expecting, personally, I thought when he listed that top 3, I was like, man, that's kind of disappointing. I don't want him to drag out this recruiting. But if you haven't paid attention to Georgia's recruiting, they have signed like 5 O-linemen in the last week. They've been, every day is like a new O-lineman. Well, not signed, but committed. It's like a new O-lineman commits to the Bulldogs. At this point, if I'm Daniels, sure, you can go join that O-line class, or you can come to Florida State and be the big dog in this class and maybe help get some other guys. But if you look at the guys that they're recruiting over there, they're recruiting some massive human beings, like 6'5", 380-pound high schoolers. We all know Daniels is a little bit on the smaller side. So I'm not too worried about Georgia as much as I previously was. Now, the question is, should I be worried about Kentucky? Kentucky's had a recent stint of actually recruiting decent O-linemen. I think it's all Florida State. I think it should be all Florida State at this point. I hadn't seen you on Twitter in a minute. 2 reasons why. Here's the real reason why I've not been on Twitter. My account was suspended. My account got suspended because, me and Shonda go back and forth on there. And I said something that I didn't even think that was that big a deal. And I don't know. They said it was hate speech. So my account got locked. And it's been locked for like the past week. And that's the real reason why I've not been on Twitter, because I can only view tweets. I can't send any tweets because my account's suspended, because apparently I'm a cyber bully and I can't talk on Twitter. But the lie that I'm gonna go with is I'm on Twitter because I've been off of Twitter because I got better things to do, and I don't have time to argue back and forth with trolls and uneducated Florida State fans on Twitter, which does happen, by the way, and can get exhausting. So that's my story, and I'm sticking with that one, that I have purposely been off Twitter for my own mental health and because a lot of people are not worth my time on there. And what I said previously, you can just forget that my account was suspended. But yeah, there's that. Our offense is going to look good this year that JoJo Trader wants to have no choice. I mean, I get that. And I think our offense is going to look great. I do believe that. I'll say this, whether it comes to Trader or even Jeremiah Smith to some degree. If Florida State is somehow, if we're able to have like 2,000-yard receivers, if Johnny and Keon can both hit 1K, I'll open my eyes more to Trader and Jeremiah Smith. Jeremiah Smith, I believe, is an extreme long shot. I think FSU's in the mix for Trader. I just ultimately don't think Trader's going to pick here. With that said, you give me 2,000-yard receivers, and I'll pay more attention to that. I love our wide receiver. I'll be honest with you, man. I love our receiver class as it stands. But I do know they're going to do some big game fishing and some big game hunting, and they're going to try to go out there for Trader and even Smith. You had, what was it, Cam Underwood was his name, who just recently committed to Texas A&M, who was the other 5-star they were trying to get. So we'll see how that – does he continue his recruitment or does he shut that down? We'll see if Florida State can still kind of – because they do have his teammate committed now in red. So we'll see if we can still kind of ease in on that or however that goes. You give me 2,000-yard receivers and maybe a lot of things change there. But as it stands right now, even though I expect a good season, I still think the identity of this team is running the ball. So I don't know. What did I say? It doesn't even matter what I said. It didn't even say anything that bad. I think I told her, I don't know. I'm going to repeat what I said. If you don't know, if you follow me on Twitter, you know there's this one person, and Tay knows what I'm talking about. My old classmate, I call her my sister. We go back and forth on Twitter. We just go back and forth and joke on each other. She says all kind of mean stuff to me. I say all kind of mean stuff back. I think I told her to like go starve herself or something like that. And I got kicked off of Twitter. It wasn't even that serious. So they told me it was hate speech, and I got apparently it's a week-long suspension, and we'll see how long it takes for them to reinstate me. But yeah, they got me up out of there. He is an athlete, Tyler. Allegedly, he can play DB. But I know everybody's pretty much recruiting him as a receiver. Where do I think Trader goes? I'll be honest with you. I think Trader stays home. I know Florida State fans ain't going to want to hear that. I think Trader stays home. Now, I know OSU is in the mix there too. I think Trader stays home. I think when I hear Trader talk, when I've heard him talk in the past, I think that's where his heart's at. Now, if Miami goes out there and has another incompetent offense, then he might make the best business decision for him. He might make the best business decision for him and not decide to stay home, which would make sense. So I also see that side of the coin too, right? Where Miami's offense was absolutely inept last year. And if they are arguably Miami's another 2 injuries away from being the same, this really one. Tyler Van Dyke goes down again. They're probably right there in the same boat that they were last year. You're going to see Ja'Cory Brown out there running more than throwing, if we're just being honest. If I'm a receiver, do I want to play for that? I probably don't. If that happens, maybe then, Trader. But as well, right now, I think the man wants to stay home. And barring something serious, I think he's going to stay home. Mind you, we would really need them like that with King being the year before them, right? Well, I don't think I don't think you can have enough receivers. Just ask Ohio State. Do they have enough receivers as they load up on 5-stars every year, and they get them drafted? So I could care less about who we signed this previous class and Von Travius Jacobs and Keem and all of them. Good. Dustin Hill's on campus. Awesome. That don't mean you continue to add. You continue to add. So I'm not saying obviously we're not Ohio State, but Ron Dugan's is trying to recruit them type of receivers, man. He's trying to load up on receivers, so we'll see. But I don't think what you signed previously dictates how you approach this receiving class. I think you load up on weapons. You load up on your weapons. Bro, I've seen so much worse on Twitter. But yeah, again, that's what I said. The truth is, I'm just taking a break from Twitter. They ain't kicked me out. I just take a break. I'm just taking a break. Best thing would be for Hartline. Yeah, I mean, obviously, if he moves on from Ohio State, that's going to open up a lot of things there. That probably will open up some transfer portal receivers from them too. Very interesting, right? We'll see what happens. What Northwestern isn't exactly a destination job. Extremely high academics. Not in a great part of the country. I'm not sure how much they even invest in football there. It's not like they're going to be a huge coaching search there, I don't think. My thoughts on Northwestern situation. I mean, I heard about the hazing. To be honest with you, I didn't pay much attention to it. It's Northwestern, so I kind of there we go. I kind of don't care. But I'm aware that Fitzgerald got fired, and he's been there forever. And I'm aware that, there's I don't know all the details of it because they didn't quite care. If we have the best case scenario type of season, do we load up on high school recruits if we have the momentum, or do we take around 20 to 24 regardless, leave the room for portal, hope to avoid a drop-off? Interesting question. I like this question. I like this question, Briley, a lot. I am a proponent of the portal because I think the portal gives you those immediate impact options. You said best case scenario is a national championship appearance. Definitely a playoff appearance. We'll say playoff appearance. Though, I mean, with this team, you could argue that a national championship appearance is the best case scenario. But we'll say playoff. I think at certain positions, you first of all, you recruit the best players you're able to sign. And then what you don't recruit, you simply go to the portal with. I believe you can find receivers in the portal. We've obviously seen you can find damn good receivers in the portal who are able to impact right away. I said this last year about Johnny. Find me a freshman receiver who was going to impact the game as quickly as Johnny Wilson could. Hold on, y'all. Getting a phone call. All right. Like I was saying, I think you can find receivers in the portal. We've seen that you can find interior O linemen in the portal. I think where I struggle with the portal is linebackers. I wish we recruited those better. And then I wish we recruited the interior of the defensive line better. We've had a pretty decent run of edge players in the portal, but I would like to see some more interior guys. So I think, you sign the best guys you can whether that's 25 or so players, and then obviously you're going to leave some maneuverability there in the transfer portal to plug in the holes you got to plug in. So there's that. Give me 10 seconds and I'll be back, guys. 30 seconds. Give me 30. All right. We're back. We are back. Okay, so let's talk. Let's get back to what we was talking about. I also heard Atkins' name get thrown around, but I don't buy it, honestly. I don't buy it either. Plus, I see Atkins as a Southern coach. Georgia, Louisiana. That's what I see. Not saying he wouldn't go to Northwestern, but I don't think he'd handcuff himself by going to Northwestern. Just me. They need Adam Fuller for that job. Northwestern is right outside of Chicago. That's a good place in the country. No, I'm not going to show the Midwest too much love. I want you to go to recruiting and you show me where the Midwest love is. You're talking about getting players to play football. That's the Southeast. Point blank, period. That's from Texas to Florida, Texas, Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, Florida. That's the part of the country I'll show love to. The Midwest, do they have good players? Sure. Can you? If that was the case, Ohio State wouldn't be in Florida every year, and Michigan and all these other schools. So, no. Sorry, Chicago isn't the place to build a college football program. Polk, I don't know why after watching FSU last year and what we're putting on the field this year offensively, how can Trader choose Miami over us? I think you're thinking about it from your standpoint and not the kids. If the kid wants to be a Hurricane, that's where he wants to be. I think sometimes we have to remove ourselves and our logic from these decisions. I mean, I can look at a bunch of kids and go, how the hell did you choose that school? Ask TJ Capers, no knock to Louisville, but how does a 5-star edge guy out of South Florida choose Louisville over any of the in-state Florida schools, over Alabama, over Georgia, of all places? Capers wants to go play at Louisville. Sometimes you have to remove your thought process out of these young men's recruiting. And if he wants to be a Cane, barring some type of just offensive disaster, that's where he'd want to be. I don't necessarily think it has to do anything with a girl, but we have seen these young men make moves unfortunately, because of women. And if that's true, see, I don't know anything much about that, but if his mother is whatever, that also will play a big part, obviously. Atkins is from Chicago, to be fair. He's built all his recruiting relationships in the South, though, so I hear you, but he's kind of he coached at Charlotte and Tulane and these places. Like, he's built his pipeline in the South, so I understand where he's from. Bobby Battle was from West Virginia, if I'm not mistaken. But he's built his base in the South. I think that's where, if I was him, and just my thoughts, that's where I would want to stick it out. Who's the wide receiver going to Mizzou? That was James Madison. I kind of told y'all that was going to happen. So we actually hit perfect on our predictions for the that first July weekend, where I predicted that we actually hit perfect. Got everybody I thought we would, and we missed out on the guys that I thought we would miss out on. So we did a good job on that. Again, man, the 15th's coming up. You got Jonathan Daniels, you got Mekhi Danzy, and you got Kevin Levy all announcing on the 15th. I think FSU can go 3-0 in that stretch. So that will leave you to land 7 in the month of July. And then, of course, you end the month with the big guns, with the whale, Charles Lester III. I believe he is the second best corner in the country, 5-star. I think he's all Noel, but we'll see, man. A lot of people are feeling Colorado. Of course, Colorado's getting all the buzz. So we'll see what happens with that. I don't really fear them. To me, it's been Florida State all along. If he doesn't choose Florida State, I'll probably have some choice words, man. I'm not even going to lie to you, because I think that's a whiff. That's a major whiff. That's a major whiff. As an outsider, FSU should be in recruiting battles with UGA, Bama, and LSU. We are in those recruiting battles. You can consider Lester that type of battle. Lester has Bama and Georgia in his Final Four, along with Colorado and Florida State. We flipped the number one tight end in the country from Georgia. Jonathan Daniels is between Georgia and Florida and Kentucky. So we're in those battles, Marco. We are absolutely in those battles. So we'll see what happens, but we're not. It's not like we were going up against Duke for players, It's not like we're signing 18 3-stars like some other in-state schools. I don't want to say no names, right? But it's not like that's what we're doing. What's up, BB, man? How you doing? Briley with another question. He says, I know you have this season all about Clemson season. Do you think it'll be close? I don't. I think we win by 14. Hey, I love it. I think that first game could not only be close, because my assumption, honestly, is that we could lose the first game. I'm not saying we will, but if you told me we did, I wouldn't be shocked. It's an away game. And you have lost to this team 7 or 8 years straight. So there's also a mental there's somewhat of a mental block there. No one on this coaching staff, outside of Odell Higgins, has beaten Clemson. No one on, and obviously no player has beaten this team. So no one on this damn entire team knows anything about beating Clemson at this point. So there's a mental block there. There's going to be a huge emotional dump in this game because what that game is going to mean and the way they're going to approach that game. If you told me you lost the first one and the closest one, I wouldn't be shocked by it. But I also wouldn't be shocked if you went out there and dominated the game. I mean, we've seen it in the past, right? I think it is all about Clemson, but I just if we play them in the championship game, I think is where we can really get back. If you told me 14 points, I think 14 plus in the ACC championship game is more likely. In neutral site, you've already got the jitters out. Whether you win or lose the first game, you already got those jitters out. That second game around is going to be out for blood. So if you told me 14, okay, you're right. Jaheim Bell. I forgot about Jaheim Bell and Gilbert Edmond for that matter. So there's two guys on the entire team that actually has experience beating Clemson. My point still kind of stands, but to your point, you're right. There are two players on the team that have beaten Clemson. I still kind of stand by what I say though. That second game, I think 14 plus. If you win the first game, then obviously you feel really good about the second game. I just think that first game is going to be not saying you won't win it. I don't think you win it by 14 though. I don't think you win it by 14. The ACC championship, I could see us winning it by 14. That first one is going to be a lot of just natural tenseness of not wanting to make that mistake and, wanting something so bad sometimes you don't play up to your potential. That's kind of how I view it. What's going on, Motivated, Dedicated? What's going on, Sarge? I mean, we know what it is. I don't think he's going, but we should unretire number 2. I've already said, and this has nothing to do with Dion, but I've been on the record. I think we should unretire number 2 anyway. We just shouldn't put it on anybody. We should make a player earn it, right? We should make a player earn the number 2. I think you could use that as a recruiting pitch or something like that. Or only dogs wear number 2. And that's only a DB. Only a DB can also wear that number. That's how I would look at it. Jeffrey says, Polk, if we get all the recruits who's leaning FSU and Trader and Smith, duh. I love how you put if in capitals, but if we were able to land all of our remaining targets and then pull a Jeremiah Smith, I mean, yeah. Yes. You should expect Fabo and Lovett to really if you want to talk about that LSU game, that's the game that I think believe it or not, I think that's the game that's more likely to get ugly than the Clemson game. I can understand why you would say Clemson because I don't know if Clemson's as talented as LSU. And LSU is going to have some players that we didn't see last year's game. But man, the more I go back and you watch the game last year, and granted, Florida State had that Duquesne game to kind of prepare. Dominant is a strong word, but you were in control of that game for 3.5 quarters. You were in control of that game for all the 3.5 quarters. People keep saying how good this LSU offensive line is going to be, and I'm like, the same LSU offensive line that I saw Fabo and Verse manhandle. I mean, yes, guys get better, but so have our guys. So I'm not so sure. For me, I just think that LSU is the game that I could see maybe getting a little ugly if we do everything we're supposed to do, because I'm not so sure LSU. I mean, there's a lot of hype around LSU, but I don't know. I don't know. I mean, unless their guys took major steps on the offensive line, and our guys just say the same. Unless our guys just stayed stagnant. I mean, how much did Patrick Payton play in that game? And we expect him to be that much better, right? Braden Fisk playing alongside Fabian Lovett. I mean, I'm so excited to see that combination of those two guys. Because I know LSU's having nightmares about Lovett, and they're saying to themselves, we're going to double Lovett. Well, that's going to leave Fisk on the island to do what he has to do. And, of course, there's Verse. And that's not even the rotation pieces that we're going to be throwing in that game. I think our D-line, man, has a big edge over that LSU offensive line that can make things a little nasty. And I know everybody's like, well, Malik Nabers played in last year's game, and he didn't do much of anything until what? I don't know. How many yards did he get? I'm less worried about LSU. I think it's going to be a great, fun game. But if you ask me between LSU and Clemson, who's most likely to get blown out, I think it's LSU. Miami fans want Hartline to take. That's because Hartline coming to South Florida and gets every receiver he wants. I understand why they want that. I don't blame him for wanting that. The man comes into South Florida and gets every single wide receiver he wants. It's actually ridiculous at this point how much talent is in South Florida at the receiver position and how they always seem to go everywhere. I mean, is Hakeem the only 5-star wide receiver in recent years to commit to a Florida school? None of them stay home in Miami. Ennis, Hakeem last year was what? Hakeem and Ennis, and Hakeem with Ohio State. Ennis with Ohio State. We got Hakeem. This year is what? Trader and Smith. They may get Trader, but they're not getting Smith. So I get it. No, Jackson is still not gotten his waiver. I don't know when that's going to get resolved. Versus a beast. I didn't expect him to play the way he did. Some draft experts got him as the number 1 overall pick. I don't know if he's quite number 1 overall, but I understand why they would say that. Because athletically, Verse is gonna run at 250. He's gonna run 4.5 minimum. He might be a little faster than that, but he's gonna run a 4.5. Verse is gonna run that. He's gonna have some great combine numbers. And if he can pair that with, I think, a double-digit sack season, yeah, I can see why a number 1 overall is in the discussion. I don't think he's number 1 overall. I do think he's probably a top 10 prospect, though. Yeah, Neighbors did muff. I know. Yeah, he did muff the punts last year. What's up, Kusami? Well, last year they didn't run. I mean, the quarterback ran on us, but they couldn't run between the tackles. And Daniels is a he's a mobile guy. He's a mobile guy. Between Jameis and Johnny, who are you starting and who do I cut? I mean, come on. It's not even a question. Starting Jameis 7 days of the week. Verse over or under 10.5. Great question. Oh, man. think Verse would have had over if he didn't get hurt for those few games. Verse was on that pace, and he still finished with what, 8 or I think we finished with 9, and he missed a couple games, and then I think against Wake only played like 20 snaps. I think Verse could have had over 10. I'm gonna go over, believe it or not. I'm gonna go over. I think he's gonna have about 12. Early prediction. I'll say Verse finishes the season with 12. If Jameis fills it out, what the hell did Johnny Manziel do? What are we talking about? Jameis fills it out, too immature. What the hell was Johnny Manziel? Again, not even a discussion. I think as Florida State fans, people get enamored with the new toy. I get it. I think Keon is a better all-around. I think he's a more consistent all-around receiver. And I said that when we got him. I think he's probably good enough to be your number one guy. Johnny is too inconsistent with the hands. And then he's not as fast as people like. I've seen someone talk about the draft and say Johnny runs about a 4.4. Bro, if Johnny runs a 4.4, then I'm hitting at least a 4.6 if Johnny runs a 4.4. I think Johnny's more of a 4.6, 4.7 guy. I don't even think Johnny's hitting 4.5. Johnny's not fast. He's a long strider, but he's not fast. And I think that is the reason, maybe. I think Keon's a better all-around guy, though. That doesn't mean Johnny at 6'7", 230 isn't a matchup nightmare that we always said he was, right? And that's true, too, just from the schedule. Again, barring injury, Verse should be over 10.5. And I need Pat needs to get me an 8 or 9. If he can hit double digits, awesome. But if Pat can get me 8 or 9, we in the money right there. We in the money. Right. Thank you. The man's been in did he live up to be a number 1 overall? No. Man's been in the league for 10 years. Made a Pro Bowl. Thrown for what, 5,000 yards and 30 touchdowns. I know he threw 30 picks too, but he's done a lot. $15 sacks would be dope though. What's the number of misses before Pat gets pulled? VJ, here's the thing about that. How much do you think we going for it? Last year, Mike went for it a lot. How much do you think we're going to go for it? If, for whatever reason, Fitz is reverting back to last year, I don't know if he gets pulled. I just don't know. If we're inside the 30, why not just go for it? And that's what football is going to anyway. As you get into more of the analytics, when you get past a certain line, when you get past the 50, the benefits of punting don't work in your favor because the ball's, unless you got a punter that's going to nail it inside the 5 every time, which isn't likely. So the benefits of punting don't help you when you bring it out to the 25 or 20-yard line, whatever it is now. And then the field goal, if you don't have an automatic kick, you're giving up good field position, you better off just going for it. I think Florida State's going to go for it, which Mike has done. He's just going to go for it more so than anything else. I'll say this about Pat. If Pat gets over 10 sacks, not only will he be an All-American, you might as well put Patrick Payton in that draft discussion because if he gets over 10 sacks, I don't see how he comes back to Florida State for his junior year. As a redshirt sophomore, Pat's going to go to the NFL. He's got all the measurables at the NFL. He's 6'5", 240 plus, twitch, bend. If Pat gets over 10 sacks, FSU is going to be very thin at defensive end next year because he's gone. I'm gonna need Fist to get me 7.5. Well, put it like this. Let me. I don't need Fist to get me 7.5. If Verse is giving me, I think Verse gets about 12. If Verse is giving me double digits, and Pat's giving me anywhere from 7, 8, 9. I don't need Verse to give me 7. Excuse me. I don't need Fist to give me 7. Give me 3 or 4 up the middle. Then you got to think about maybe some blitzes and maybe Deloach will have a few sacks or whatever. Y'all want a lot of sacks. I just don't, you got to look at what players are going to be asked to do. And Fisk playing at Western Michigan, where he was kind of asked to be the guy, is going to be asked to be a different type of player when you have 2 big-time edge guys. So instead of being asked to rush the passer necessarily, he's going to be asked to control some gaps alongside with Lovett, control the interior of the O-line. So you were maybe pushing players to that edge so your edge guys can eat. So you probably won't get 7.5, 8 sacks out of Fisk. I don't think that's reasonable for an interior guy to get you. Not saying it's impossible. I don't know if Fisk is going to get you that. I don't necessarily disagree with you, but again, if I'm Pat and I got double digit sacks, and NFL teams are going to be drooling at my measurables, and I got a chance to go for a $10 million contract in round 1 or whatever the going rate is for a first round pick is, why do I come back to school? I don't disagree with you necessarily, but if I'm Pat, if I'm Mike Norvell, and you are trying to, it's another key point. If you're Mike Norvell and JP and Adam Fuller, how do you sell defensive end recruiting? Not only did I get Jared Verse drafted, who came from Albany, we homegrown Patrick Payton from day one. Patrick Payton came into FSU's campus 200 pounds soaking wet at 6'5", and here he is as a 650 pound, 250 pound defensive end, first round, second round pick with double digit sacks, All American. Yeah, you might want to come play defensive end for me. That's how you sell it. That's exactly how you sell it. If I'm Mike Norvell and company, I encourage Patrick Payton to go pro, because that's how you think Heartline, you talk about Heartline and how he's getting all these receivers. How do you think he sells it? Well, I don't know. Ohio State gets 3 receivers in the first round drafted every single year. Every single year, it seems like. That's how you sell it. How do you think Fentrell Cypress is going to do? Until I see something differently, I think he starts opposite of Ronaldo Green. Now, about Jerry and Jones, I don't believe it. You can say what you want to say about Jerry. If I see number 7 starting across from Ronaldo Green, I'm going to be concerned. I'd rather see it. If you're telling me Cypress ain't it, then that means I'd rather see AZ start opposite of Ronaldo Green. But if I got to see number 7, I'm gonna have a fit. As of right now, I think Cypress is going to start. Why is a Miami fan a mod? Depends on who it is. If it's Zay, it's because he supports the channel, bro. I mean, I know the fandom is a thing, but I support people who support me. And you can be a fan of a different team and still support me, the person, the channel. So it's not just about, if I felt like Zay as a mod didn't conduct himself in the right manner, then I would take his wrench from him. But that's why. What's up, Jit?
I love you.
I love you too, man. If our defensive line is doing what I believe they would do, I think our secondary will be making more picks. That's another big thing, right? Your pass rush, if it's consistent, more interception opportunities, obviously, right? Give me 100 sacks and 50 picks, and we good. Love it, Tyler. That's my guy. Just the little things. Oh, man. That's what I'm saying. You get Pat and Verse in the first round next year, your defensive end recruiting is going to skyrocket. I said this about linebacker recruiting. I hate the fact that linebacker recruiting is the way it is. But why do you think it's the way it is? When's the last good linebacker FSU sent to the NFL? You can't name him. It's legitimately probably Telvin Smith. You can't name him. It's been that long since we've had a decent linebacker come through the school and go to the league. Can't blame a high school kid for going, none of the linebackers Florida State's had that's been any good, or did I even watch as a kid? Right, it's Telvin. So that's my point. That's why linebacker recruiting has sucked. If we want defensive end recruiting to skyrocket, well, give me Pat, give me Verse in the first round, and we might have something to talk about. Right? So I've said before, I think Florida State's recruiting is going to hit closer to where we're kind of used to being in previous years. I think the top 10 class should all but be expected this year. And I think most Florida State fans should be having with a top 15 class at the rate we've been going. Granted, if you combine the portal, which in a lot of ways I do think the portal should be added to your recruiting. You know, I've gone over that discussion at length. At this point, if you're still saying that the portal isn't sustainable, I have no idea what you're watching or anything like that. The portal is just as sustainable as high school recruiting. In some cases, maybe more so. So at some point, I think 247 combines both. Maybe it should get to the point where you just combine both the portal and high school and get your overall recruiting ranking. You feel me? So, but I think top 10 class straight out of high school for sure. And I still think they'll attack the portal fairly heavy because why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? Kusami says, I think Blake Nicholson's going to be good. I do too. We should see the field, seeing what we got. I think Omar Graham's going to be better than what people think. But we'll see. That's how we grew up, though. One of my best friends is a Miami fan. That's how we grew up, though. I don't know how it is growing up in Kentucky, being a Louisville fan in Kentucky. I mean, I'm pretty sure, but that's how it is in Florida. I think anybody that grew up in Florida can attest to that. You're gonna grow up, and half of your friends gonna be Gator fans, the other half gonna be, that's just how we grew up. So we talk our trash and we get into it, but at the end of the day, it's football. It is football. Like I said, one of my best friends is a Miami fan. Jerg, who comes on here all the time, Miami fan. Growing up, another one of my best friends was a Florida fan. Like, that's just how we grew up. That's just how we grew up. Yeah, and plus Zay don't ever come in here with the BS. Noles make the playoffs this year. Absolutely possible. Absolutely possible. Not saying they will. And there may be some things that need to happen, but I think it's more probable than possible. but it's not for certain, right? It's not for certain. I do think there's going to be, obviously you got to avoid the injury bug. The good thing about the schedule isn't hard. You got the first 4 games of the season, really 2 of the 4, LSU, Clemson. You go 4-0, the sky's the limit. Even if you lose one of the first 4, sky is still attainable at that point. Avoid injury. Maybe, I mean, it wouldn't hurt to have maybe a couple teams face their own injury bugs. Like might have that need some things to break in your favor along the way, because I don't think Florida State is a stacked team for a national championship run. I think they are a team built to win the ACC. But in winning the ACC, if you take care of business and you don't have more than 2 losses, and one of those losses to either Clemson or LSU, you're still in that playoff hunt for sure. And then you get a couple things to break your way. I mean, kind of similar to TCU last year, Florida State could definitely make the playoff. In Louisville, we beat up Kentucky fans in real life. I mean, I hear you. I think, honestly, man, what makes our rivalries kind of special in Florida is we all grow up. There really isn't a jurisdiction on fanhood in Florida. Like, I can go to South Florida and find a bunch of Gator fans as well as Florida State fans. You can go to Central Florida and find, while each school does have their territory, you can go to any parts of those territories and find you a bunch of the fans of the opposing school. And honestly, I think the people that actually grew up around each other they are the real example of the Florida State-Miami rivalry or Florida State-Florida rivalry. I think what you see on social media isn't the real. What you see on social media is a fraud. These guys talking reckless on, really, unfortunately, the example of this rivalry in the Big Three, it's the guys that didn't even grow up in Florida that claim to be a Miami fan or whatever. They're the ones, in my opinion, that don't do this rivalry justice, because they talk, but they didn't even grow up around. I grew up around Miami fans and Florida fans and vice versa, right? These guys in these other parts of the country didn't even grow up in this. They just a fan. Kudos to them. But they're not the example of the rivalry. There's a lot of respect in the rivalry, more so than we give it credit for. Because, again, family, friends, we have all of that. And it doesn't really get shown on social media. What all you see on social media is 2 people who are never going to see each other in real life taking personal shots at each other. That's all you ever see. Talking about their mamas and all of this other stuff. Two keyboard warriors that are never going to talk to each other in real life. And then people see that on social media and they run with it and say, that's the Florida State, that's the Miami rivalry, or that's the Florida State rivalry. And in reality, that's not necessarily the case. So it's easy to talk to crap on Twitter. It's easy to get on a YouTube channel in the comments and go back and forth. But, and it's fun, and I get it. It's all of that. But people that grew up in a rivalry, they don't conduct themselves in that manner. That don't mean we don't talk our trash and go back and forth with each other, because we absolutely do. But just the recklessness at which you see on social media isn't a real indication of the rivalry. I promise you it's not. I promise you it's not. Kainsey says, I never said on here, but everything Polk said about us last year was spot on. From guys. Hey, I'm glad you admitted it. I know you didn't want to admit it at the time, but it all came to fruition. Myron says, I was born in Miami and grew up FSU fan. My dad and brothers are all Canes fans. I have a lot of friends and acquaintances who are Canes fans. If you're a Floridian and love college football, that's how it goes. Absolutely. That's my point. family, friends. If we really act like how people act on the internet in real life, you couldn't even go anywhere. I didn't know his defense was responsible for getting that 7 points to West Virginia until POLK said it. Then Lights can do it on YouTube. Knows I know a little bit, not a lot, a little bit. I think it's just easy to talk crap on Twitter because there's no risk of getting punched. There you go. There's no risk of anything. Things are way more friendly in person in my experience. Again, because you grew up in it, of course. It doesn't mean when game time don't come around, we talk. But this is like any good friendship. Y'all talk trash. You're gonna talk trash. It's just the stuff you see on Twitter. Again, and I love Twitter. I love Twitter because it's entertaining, not because it's real life. I love Twitter simply because it makes me laugh. But I don't take anything on that app seriously. The problem is I see too many grown adults get on Twitter and take this stuff like it's the gospel. That's the problem with Twitter. Broward County has the most FSU alumni in the state outside of Leon. We live amongst one another. And for a lot of there's a lot of trash talk banner, but because again, like you said, we live amongst each other. But it's the people, I promise y'all, it's the people that's from, I don't know, Alabama that claim to be a Florida State fan, or Mississippi, or these other states that didn't grow up around this. They kind of have the most to say. I just don't like fam because I go there. I grew up around no Noles fans, nothing but Bulldogs. Not that I'm in Florida. I love seeing Noles everywhere. The entire state of Kentucky hates Louisville. Sports are political and racial here. It's more than just a game. I hear that. Vontae says, hold up, I'm in Bama. I hear you, Vontae, but I'm just telling you. And Bama is a unique state. And Bama and Georgia are unique to Florida because Pensacola area is like, might as well say that's Bama to some degree. And of course, the South Georgia area has been notorious Florida State country for a long time. So those two parts are a little different, but all in all, man, yes, big rivalry. But I think what separates our rivalries from like Auburn and Alabama, there's legit hate in Auburn and Alabama, where I don't think the state of Florida has that. What made the state of Florida's rivalry so special was that it was the talent. It was Florida and Florida State and the talent that was on the field. How many of those guys were actually going to not only go to the NFL, but be Hall of Famers? Florida State and Miami, not only were the guys going to the NFL, but be Pro Bowlers and All Pros and Hall of Famer. Like, that is what made our rivalries a tier above everyone else, in my opinion. Yes, the bad blood is always going to be bad blood. Did they get in fights on the field? Absolutely. The big hits and all of that. But it was a talent level of the two teams that just made it special. Whereas Auburn and Alabama, like, these people don't even like to be around each other. They'll legit, like, shoot at each other. Like, it's silly, right? I get it. Mississippi State's probably similar. Like some of these other states maybe have a more intimate rivalry. But Florida State, Miami, Florida State, Florida, it was the sheer amount of talent on the football field that made our rivalry special. Which is why, to me, we have the best rivalries in college football, and because the games actually matter. I've said this about the Iron Bowl for years. It's one of the most overrated rivalries because outside the state of Alabama, it doesn't mean anything. And outside the state of Alabama, it hasn't meant nothing nationally except for what? When Cam Newton was there and the year we played Auburn in the national championship game. It's like 2 years out of 100 years they've been playing, that game has actually meant something on a national scale. There was a time where Florida State, Florida, and Florida State, Miami meant something. The winner of those games played in and maybe even won national championships, like legitimately, which is why our rivalries matter. Outside of the state of Alabama, the Iron Bowl doesn't mean anything. And I stand by that. Same thing outside of the Midwest. Michigan State, Ohio State, I know gets a lot of media hype. Doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean anything. When was the last time Michigan and Michigan State meant anything nationally? Maybe last year. Both still made the playoff, right? That's just me, though. Thank you, Myron. You sum it up perfectly. What is the most overhyped rivalry? I just said probably the big two, in my opinion. Michigan State, Ohio State, and the Iron Bowl. I think those are the two most overhyped rivalries in college football. Florida's different because it's 3 teams instead of 2, and Florida is a big state compared to Alabama. So, meaning that you're not wrong, right? Meaning Alabama only has those 2 teams, and they hate each other, and I get it. But Army and Navy's, Army and Navy's up there too. Army and Navy is up there too. Unless you went to West Point, you don't care about that game. In this rivalry, you have to embrace the good with the bad. I wasn't used to losing to FSU until that 7-game losing streak. Then we snapped the streak, good with bad. You weren't used to losing to FSU until the 7-game losing streak. Up until the 7th-game winning streak that we went on, we still traded wins back and forth. But yeah, once Jimbo took over, he kind of did not lose to y'all anymore. You know what here is funny? I'm a little a Clemson fan because of a softball. She looked good. But I need to control my hormones. These softball players are God dang, Terrell. Yeah, softball players, volleyball players, yeah, they built different, if you know what I'm saying. They built different. So be careful. Be careful. They are built different, though. In a good way. You should have shut down UCF. I had friends that went there, too. The thing about UCF is they're interesting. UCF's an interesting case because if you would have asked me – 10 years ago, was it 2023? So if you would have asked me in 2010, I would have told you USF would have had the higher trajectory than UCF, but it just shifted on its head. I remember USF at one point was ranked number 2 in the country. I mean, their quarterback was a guy that went to my high school. I don't know if you guys remember him, but his name was Matt Grothy. And he took our high school to state like 2 years in a row. USF was, a lot of people thought being in Tampa, USF was like on the way. Truth is, USF and UCF are both in pretty decent locations. The problem with both schools is that majority of the fans or the majority of the populace in those areas are already fans of Florida Gators or the Seminoles or the Hurricanes. But they are definitely year after year they grow their alumni base, right? So, but UCF, they're making the move to the Big 12. We'll see if that benefits them. I don't know if that benefits them. The good news for them is Texas and Oklahoma leave right after they get there. So they only play a year with those two. And then they don't have to see that. So in a lot of ways, the Big 12, in my opinion, they're just another version of the AAC. I don't see much difference in the caliber of schools between what's left of the Big 12 and what's in that conference. So they might go to the Big 12 and make some noise. They might. Most people outside of the state of Alabama could care less about the Iron Bowl until the SEC network came around and started pumping that thing as the greatest rivalry in sports, and it's not. It's like Notre Dame. Notre Dame has so many rivals. At what point does any of Notre Dame rivalries even matter? They have rivalries with Michigan and Michigan State and USC and Miami and Stanford and I think Purdue. It's like, at what point does any of Notre Dame's rivalries even matter? Oklahoma and Texas is I like that rivalry more than these other ones I named. At least when you look at Oklahoma and Texas over the last, again, it's 2023, let's just say 20 years. Oklahoma has played in a number of national championships. They didn't win them, but they've been there. Texas had their fair share of like, at least I can say Oklahoma and Texas games mattered. I can at least say that. The backyard brawl. Which one's the backyard brawl, Tyler? Because I know Texas Oklahoma that's the Red River Shootout, right? What's the backyard brawl? I forget. The backyard brawl. Let me Google it. Oh hell, see? Didn't know nothing about it. Didn't know nothing about it. The backyard brawl, West Virginia Pitt, right? So again, a lot of these rivalries they're rivalries based on proximity to schools and state lines, but how many of these rivalries actually matter or have mattered on the national scale? I think OU and Texas isn't bad. I think that's a solid rivalry, to be honest with you. Again, just go past the last 20 years. Texas and Oklahoma has played in their fair share of national championships. The backyard brawl, I had no idea was West Virginia and Pitt. As you see, I don't pay any attention to it. I think the Iron Bowl is overrated. The Egg Bowl doesn't mean anything outside of Mississippi. LSU and Alabama has honestly been, as far as present day, so let's go back to the last 20 years. LSU and Alabama has probably been the best rivalry in college football. That game has determined national scale natties, LSU and Bama. And we're just going the past 20 years. So since 2000, LSU and Bama has probably been the best rivalry in college football. Michigan and Ohio State has gotten better in the last, 5 years? I'm in the military too, Terrell, and I'm telling you, unless you went to West Point, the game just doesn't matter to most people. It doesn't matter to most people. I've never watched a down of Army versus Navy. I'm not even gonna lie to you. If you like it, hey, to each their own. LSU and Bama has been the rivalry, I think, in college ball over the last 20 years. I'm trying to think of some other ones. Clemson and Florida State. Again, I'll be honest with y'all. Y'all know how I feel about Clemson and Florida State. I think the rivalry is a media push. I don't really think it's a true rivalry in my opinion. But as far as ACC goes, I mean, that rivalry has mattered, and it's mattered somewhat to a national scale, especially from like 2010 to 15, 16. That game mattered on a national scale, Clemson and Florida State. And I guess in that case, that can make it a rivalry, right? The problem with Georgia and Tennessee is the same thing with Florida and Tennessee. Tennessee is just now getting back to relevance. The game has not mattered nationally. Georgia and Tennessee has not mattered since the 90s. Same thing with Florida and Tennessee. The game hasn't mattered since the 90s. Doesn't mean anything. Again, it might mean something to those two schools. Like I believe Georgia and Auburn, if I'm not mistaken, is like a bigger rivalry than like Georgia and Florida. I think Georgia and Auburn fans hate each other more so than anything. Again, that might be a big rival to, like, Georgia's probably Florida's biggest rival. But Florida and Georgia is similar to Miami and Florida State, where Miami's not our biggest rival, in my opinion. Now, I know that all depends on how you grew up and where you grew up and what game you care about more. My opinion has always been Florida State and Florida is the rivalry. Miami and Florida State is second. For Miami, Florida State and Miami is first. For Miami fans, Florida State is the rival. I think it's similar to Georgia and Florida, where I think Georgia is the rival, or Florida is the rival for Georgia. Maybe Auburn too, because I've heard a lot about that Auburn-Georgia rivalry. But Florida and Florida State, Florida probably hates Florida State more than they hate Georgia. That's me speaking as a Florida State fan. Could be wrong on that. Clemson has more relevancy than FSU, though. In what time span? The last 20 years that I'm talking about? No, I'd say it'd be about the same. If you want to talk about the last 10 years from our national championship in 2013 to now, Clemson has had more success, for sure. I'll give you that. Clemson has more of a recency bias than Florida State, but more relevancy, I don't see that. As a matter of fact, viewership says that's false, Mr. Zion2215. Actually, go watch people that watch football games, and Florida State draws more eyes on it than Clemson does. And Clemson's has more recent success than Florida State. Florida State's a bigger brand than Clemson, whether Clemson fans want to admit it or not. Exactly. Clemson's just a game that matters. So that's why I always say Clemson's not a rivalry to me. But I know people who like to argue that one. Clemson is a game that has mattered on the field, but there's nothing. Again, they tried to put make it the Bowden Bowl. They did a lot of media things to spin that rivalry and get it kickstarted. But there's more to rivalries than just on the field, for sure. Like I said, for me, it's FSU UF for me. For Oregon and Oregon State, again, in that state, probably a huge rivalry. I think it's even called the Civil War in that state. That junk don't mean anything outside of Oregon. I can understand why they would say Notre Dame. And in the 80s, Notre Dame was like the team of the 80s, and so was Miami. Miami was a team of the 80s too. They clashed a lot in the 80s, so I can understand why Notre Dame could necessarily be considered that. But Florida State was still finding its way in the 80s, so I mean, I kind of If you're 50 years old, maybe I understand. If you're a 50-year-old Miami fan, maybe I can understand that a little bit. Last 10 years, I definitely said that. Well, you're kind of talking like a Clemson fan. You're over here pumping the Clemson, talking about Dabo's the king of the ACC and all of this. But, I mean, that's fair. I'm not going to argue with you about who's the best coach in the ACC record-wise. It's absolutely Dabo Swinney. I'm also not going to argue with you that Clemson has been more successful than Florida State. You said relevant. Clemson has not been more relevant than Florida State, even with Florida State having this, 2017 to 2021 dip of trashness. We'll just call it what it was in that time span. Again, Florida State still draws more viewers than Clemson on a national scale. So you can't tell me Clemson is more relevant than Florida State, because that's just not – the numbers say that's not the case. The numbers say that's not the case, meaning people that actually tune in to watch football games say that's not the case. I get that thought process, even though you don't play them every year. You may hate them more, but you can't tell me that Florida's a bigger game than Miami. But I understand that. I understand that Miami has this thought process that Florida ducks them. Whether that's true or not, one team definitely ducked the other team. Whether that was Florida or Miami, I don't know. But I understand Miami has that thought process that, at least Florida State plays us every year. Florida can't even play us every year. So I get that. Whoops. FSU UF growing up was possibly the nastiest rivalry I've ever seen. 21 state rivals, 200 miles from one another, top 5 programs. Nothing better than those games. No, I didn't. Again, I did not say Mike Norvell's a better coach than Dabo Swinney. Mike Norvell has a lot to prove. You're making a completely different argument than what you originally stated. You said Clemson was more relevant. Now you're saying Dabo's a better coach. I'm not arguing Clemson had more success in the last 10 years. I'm not arguing that Dabo has been a better coach in the last 10 years. I'm not arguing any of that. Clemson is not a more relevant program than Florida State. Again, the viewership says otherwise. Viewership, people that actually watch the football games, says that people will tune in to watch the Garnet and Gold more than they will tune in to watch, orange and purple? I mean, that's just what the numbers say. The numbers say that. Despite how bad Florida State's been the last 6-7 years. Would you call Jordan Travis a dark horse or a top dog to win the Heisman? Because in all honesty, I think he's a top 2 to 3 to win. Definitely not a dark horse. I think the expectation is for him to compete for it. A dark horse would be like Trey Benson. And I'm not saying Trey Benson is necessarily a dark horse, but who knows? Trey Benson could easily run for 1,500 yards if Florida State chose to do that. I think they could. I think he could. So that is what I consider a dark horse. I think the expectation is if Travis continues on this trajectory, he should finish with some good numbers. The question is going to be how, and I've said this all along, I'm interested to know Florida State's approach game in and game out. Do we change our identity of the team? Are we still a run-first team? Even as a run-first team, do we still maybe throw the ball? How many passes a game are we going to see Jordan Travis? Some of the things that are going to have to equate to him winning a Heisman, because a Heisman is all about the position you play. So you already plays a position, but then the numbers you put up. You're not going to win a Heisman throwing, what did he throw last year? Like 3,100 yards, 20 touchdowns, and running for another 5 or 6. That's not going to win you the Heisman. He's gonna have to put up damn near 4,500 total yards of offense and over 30 TDs. I would say over 35 total TDs to win a high. So you're talking about a guy that's going to have to throw for over 3,500 yards, run for another 500 yards, throw for 30 something touchdowns, probably run for another 10. Like that's Heisman numbers, if you look historically. So I don't think he's a dark horse, but he's going to have to put up hellacious numbers to win it. The way our offense is constructed, I don't know if he puts up those numbers because we're just going to spread. There's going to be so many guys that's just going to get involved. I expect Trey Benson to have another close to, if not 8,000-yard season. Toafili is going to have another 500-yard rushing, 400-yard receiving type season. Then you got Jaheim Bell who can run and catch. Keon Coleman's going to have his 800-plus yards. Johnny's going to have his 800-plus yards. It's just going to be a lot of moving pieces offensively that I don't know if Jordan Travis gets those type of numbers. I just mentioned Trey Benson. Trey Benson is probably the only other, theoretically, the only other person I could see being in the Heisman discussion. Mario is the third most accomplished coach in the ACC behind Mac Brown and Dabo. I guess if we're counting a 500 football coach as the third most accomplished, I guess so. I guess he won a couple conference championships at Oregon, even though one was a 4-3 COVID year. I mean, I guess. You know what? I guess. I'm not even going to – I don't even know. I'm not even going to go in that. If they make the Natty, I'll make my way to Houston for sure. That's right down the road. Well, it's a good thing for Mike Norvell. He's never lost to Duke. Matter of fact, Florida State as a program has never lost to Duke. So a good thing that I'm not too worried about losing to Duke. I can't say the same about Miami. You claim you're not a Clemson fan, so I don't know who you were a fan of there, Mr. Zion2215. But Florida State's never lost to Duke, so I don't know where that come from. But continue. FSU don't lose to Duke apparently, but I believe that would be. See, Zay, at least you have fun with it. At least you have fun with it. I can respect that. I don't know. I actually don't know who Zion is. He claims he's not a Clemson fan. He doesn't, but he's been riding Clemson's nuts pretty hard this live stream. I don't think he's a Miami fan. Zay, can you vouch for him? Is he a Miami fan? I don't know if I don't think I've seen Zion 2215 on here before. And then he just said Florida State needs to not lose to Duke. And again, we've never lost to Duke in our history. So I don't even know where that came from. But Zion came in here and decided to cause a little bit of turmoil. Yeah, get it. He might be a Gator fan if he claims he's not a Clemson fan. Might be a Gator fan. But no, man, we got on some rivalry talk. I didn't even know that was gonna come up. But yeah, man, this Saturday should be a big one. I don't know if I'll be live this Saturday because I think I'm gonna be out and about. But I don't know. I might try to do something if we get the guys that I think we're gonna get. That's what I said, D'Angelo. I think he's a Florida fan. Yeah, Zion, you might want to worry about porn stars you be over there engaged with, my man. You're not worried about college football talk. Worry about getting in shape and playing for the Pelicans and stop messing with these porn stars. Or at least stop, doing what, you know what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to keep the show a little bit PG, but stop impregnating porn stars. There you go. Let's not do that. And look, and if you're gonna use social media to message these women, get a burner. Stop using Snapchat and having your name on there. I mean, come on, Zion. You gotta be better than that. You're making a lot of rookie mistakes here. Be better, man. Be better. LSU and Clemson are the only teams I believe will the most watched games of the weeks that they play. I guarantee College Game Day winds up in Death Valley. If we are 3-0 going into Death Valley, I expect that probably will be a college game day. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. College Game Day, do they do neutral site games? Because honestly, there's no reason why. But see, that our game's going to be on a Sunday. So you probably won't get College Game Day in Orlando. Do they do neutral site games? I'm not so sure. But if we can be 3-0 going into Death Valley, we may very well get a College Game Day for sure. We may very well get a College Game Day. Or Clemson does. I guess technically you would say Clemson's going to get the College Game Day. Unfortunately, man, you look at our home schedule, our only hope is that Miami is halfway decent this year and that we can get College Game Day in November for the Miami game. And that means Miami needs to be like a 9-3, 8-4 team for that to happen. Don't know if that's going to happen, but Miami has to be halfway decent for that to happen. We'll see. Right, that's what I'm saying. If Miami can do their job, we could have our own game day, but Miami has to do their job. Man, I really want to see Zion be that dude. Zion is I said this, man, when Zion was coming out. Zion is Charles Barkley 2.0. Charles Barkley 2.0. And I think Charles Barkley pound for pound is one of the top 3 power forwards that ever played a game. Ton of potential there with Zion. But when you love when you love porn stars and gumbos as much as he do, it's hard to get on the basketball court, man. The man in New Orleans, he eating beignets and gumbo and egg touffee, and I mean, I get it, man. That's some good eating, but when you love, when you love that stuff more than you love basketball, when you love dribbling in cheeks more than you love dribbling a ball, it's just gonna be tough to get on the court, man. It's tough. My vote is Miami versus Miami. The battle for real Miami should be College Game Day. Woo, if they lose that game, Tyler. The internet will blow up. I'm telling you right now. If you thought Middle Tennessee was fun, Middle Tennessee was so fun last year. Twitter was on fire. It was so fun. If they lose to Miami of Ohio, you might want to create a Twitter account just for that weekend. It's going to be the best time in the world. I promise you. I promise you. What's going on, Brandy? It has been a while. How you been? Our first game is against Miami of Ohio. Some fans and media still got Middle Tennessee flashback. Bro, if y'all lose to that team, the jokes are going to write themselves. The jokes, oh my God. Oh my God. Part of me wants y'all to lose that game just for that reason. That's another point, Will. If that game's even like a 10-point, 7-point game, oh my God, there's going to be some. Like you said, Martin's going to have some explaining to do. I would think that they don't have to worry about that, but I think we kind of said that last year, and the boys proved everybody to be liars. But yeah, man, y'all hit the like button, man. I decided to just do a midday live stream to kick it and see what was going on, see what y'all want to talk about. Again, man, this weekend, big weekend in recruiting. We recently had big updates to recruiting rankings, though in the middle of summer, take all of those rankings with a grain of salt, to be fair. And now we just we waiting for the start of fall camp in August, and then of course the epic season opener. And in the meantime, we have discussions like this: rivalry, recruiting, the potential that Miami could possibly lose to Miami of Ohio, which would be one of the greatest things that ever happened in college football. I promise you, that would be one of the best things that ever happened in college football. Not because I'm necessarily rooting against Miami, but the fact that Miami of Ohio beat the University of Miami in college football would be one of the greatest things that ever happened to the internet. I promise you, the memes, the jokes, the videos that's going to be made off of that, internet gold. I low-key want to see that. I low-key want that to happen. Zay, I'm sorry, but you even got to admit, the memes from that game would be the all-time classic internet just material. I mean, oh my God. If you thought Miami and FIU was bad, lose to Miami of Ohio. Oh my God. This weekend, Terrell, I'm not too sure. I think I might be going on a little. I might do something in a hotel room. I think I'm taking a little trip this weekend, but I might, depending on how it goes. I might spin the block this weekend. Definitely get something else. What's today's Tuesday? If not this weekend, we'll definitely do something Thursday or Friday for sure. Do something Thursday or Friday. As a matter of fact, I'm thinking about turning, and we'll end on this one. I feel like I need to change up some of the formats of some of my live streams. They all kind of seem the same. So when I do my Saturday night open bar, or whenever I do open bar, I might take the Saturday night off of it and just call it open bar, just because sometimes I can't do it on Saturday, obviously. I'm going to make it a true open, almost like open mic, but keep the open bar name. And I'm going to drop a link in the chat. I'm going to let people come in and talk about whatever they want to talk about, give them 2 to 3 minutes to talk about whatever they want to talk about. And whether that's debate me on something or just ask a question or just make a point. And I think that's the kind of format I'm going to go to in the future, that I want to take open bar and make it like a true open bar with dropping the link in the chat and just let random people come in and say what they got to say. And if they get too crazy, I just kick them off the stream. You know, I'm sure you'll get your trolls. They'll get kicked off. People that actually want to come and have a conversation, they'll have the opportunity to do so. I want to do the round table, but I don't know if that's going to happen, Terrell. It's hard to get everybody on the same page to do stuff. I might do something small, though. But, yeah, man, I just want to come on here, give you 2 hours in the middle of a Tuesday afternoon and chop it up a little bit. So I appreciate everybody who came in here. Good conversation today. Definitely it's only Tuesday, so I'm gonna get back with y'all sometime this week, and hopefully we have a really good outcome this weekend. Go 3-0, 3 for 3, so to speak, and we can close July off on a strong note on a recruiting trail and really get ready for this season. And the season that, as you see in the comments, a lot of high expectation for Seminole fans. I mean, expectations are through the roof. I love it. I love the fact that we are in a place where we're excited about football. We expect to be great. I love it. And I want FSU fans to keep this energy. I love it. So, as always, man, it's your boy POLK over here on 863 Seminole TV. Stay classy, Seminoles. And we are out here. Go Noles.